Hello, everyone. Welcome to Voice Like a Lion podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pemberton. And today I have someone who sounds like he is the master of all trades. And I am so excited to get to learn more about him, his story. And I know that there's so many things that he's going to give us today as an audience that are going to impact us not only in business, but also in life. So today I have Damion Lupo. He is a seasoned entrepreneur who has launched and grown over 70 companies. I can't even imagine. I've done like 5 companies, and that just sounds like a zillion times harder. From zero to 100 million throughout his remarkable 25-year journey. In addition to being a prolific author with 12 published books, Damion is celebrated for his extraordinary achievements in building multiple companies from the ground up. And here's the cool part, many of which have reached 7, 8, and even 9 figures. Building a company is cool, but when you can do it and actually show some amazing results, that's incredible. Despite significant setback that saw him lose $20 million portfolio, a lot of money by the age of 30, that's how old I am. Damion's resiliency and determination led him to not only overcome homelessness, but also rebuild his wealth beyond 9 figures. For those of you who don't know what 9 figures means, that's over $100 million. Today, he is a driving force in transforming the retirement landscape with his groundbreaking retirement plan system and revolutionizing the home and apartment construction industry through his pioneering work with FrameTech. Damion, welcome to the show.
Hey man, it's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I am fascinated. I could go about 101 different directions with that intro alone, but 70 companies. Take me back to the first one. Like, how did you get started with the first company?
The first one I remember was back in so it had been '88, so I was 11, and it was a funny thing because as an entrepreneur, you can't help but to see problems everywhere, and you're just
Yes.
solving problems. It's kind of like it's what you do, and so at 11, my parents told me we were broke, we didn't have any money, and I wanted to play video games. So I said, "Well, this is stupid. Like I need to figure this out." And I ended up setting up a business where I was out buying. I would buy big bulk groups of Nintendo games, and I hired my parents to drive me out to get the games, and then I would play them and sell them off one at a time. So it ended up being a wholesale retail uh, gaming business back then, and it was really just because I wanted to play. So it's if you, I think one of the lessons there was kind of funny. If you want to play, figure out how to create a business out of the problem that that you want to play in, and that's really what I've been doing for the last since then 35 years.
Wow. I mean, the fact that you were able to sit there and I've honestly, like to do that at 11, most people can't do that at 45 because you not only, I figured you're going to say that you did a lemonade stand or something because at 11, that's about where my mind would have went. But I think it's fascinating because I had a conversation with someone the other day talking about identifying the problem. But the way that you identified the problem and then not only found a solution, but did it at a large scale, especially for 11, that's incredible. So what was the next one? So that was your first one. What was the next one down the road?
So there are a whole bunch of so the 70 number is probably more over 100, but I just didn't
Wow.
count all this stuff when I was between 11 and 18.
Yeah.
I started businesses in college, a number of different businesses. The funniest one, because I went to these seminars where you pay $500 and you get like business in a box, and I was like, oh cool, I'm going to sell coupons for the grocery store, and I'm going to sell college scholarships, and I had all these different things. But the one that was kind of funny, the second college I went to in New Mexico, I started a bookstore in my room, talked the post office into letting me put slips into everybody's mailbox, which I think is a felony. I'm not totally sure, but you're not
Yeah.
supposed to be able to do that without a stamp. Anyways, I did it. And it basically said, hey, I'm buying books and I'm selling books. Whatever used books you want to buy or sell, let me know. And I got flooded with these flyers. And so the last week of school, I wasn't studying. I was running logistics, moving books all over the campus. And ultimately that paid for school, but it pissed off the school because I put the bookstore out of business, and they brought me in and said, you have to stop because they're literally going to go out of business. And I said, that's not my problem. They're raping and pillaging the students, and I'm giving them a better deal. I'm squeezing the margin.
Yep.
So all the students were happy. The school wasn't, and it was. I paid for school in that week, and then I left because I didn't have an option. And so that was really the next business that I ran with, and it solved a problem. And then I realized I'm not supposed to be studying engineering and computer science. Probably I'm meant to be doing something else, solving problems, not just becoming a cog in somebody's system.
That's good. I love how you put that because I think a lot of people, they don't know what to do. I like that you just decided, hey, I'm going to do something different because you didn't really care what to do with the school system. You didn't care if you were going to go be an engineer and how grand that sounded. Because honestly, I was going to go to college to do the same thing, was to be an engineer. And because my family was very middle class, they thought that that was the epitome, the white glove, right? But I never wanted to do it. It never spoke to me. It just felt pointless for me to go dump hundreds of thousands of dollars into my schooling for me to go make $100,000 a year. It would take me so long to pay everything back. But I'm really fascinated by your story so far. But what was the first business that really took off? What was the one that you found the big problem that you solved that it went to seven figures? And what was that like the first time you ever made seven figures?
Well, so it's interesting. When I started doing real estate, it was after I opened up an insurance agency, and this is in the late '90s. And there's plenty of people that start insurance agencies and make a million plus a
Mm-hmm.
year. And I saw the biggest agents in the Arizona area, and I said, okay, well that's a million. It seems like a lot, but it's not that much. Because of course, at the time I was reading Donald Trump's books about him, him doing his $1 billion real estate stuff, and I got pretty excited. And I said, well, insurance is too small. So I bailed on insurance and I sold the agency for like 15 grand, which tells you how many policies I had in force. It was like not many. And then I went over and I started doing real estate. I bought my first house with a credit card, and it was just, that's all I had. I didn't have any money. So I ended up doing that, and that turned into a multi-million-dollar thing that, I mean, it exploded over a period of about 5 years, where I just started buying houses over and over again. And I was doing it being creative. I was solving problems. People were stuck in houses that they owed as much as they were worth. And so I went to seminars and I actually paid attention and I actually did what they said to do, instead of saying, oh, I know better or I'll do it different because I'm smarter. I just did what they did, what they said to do. And ultimately that led to buying those 150 houses. The first probably 30 or 40, maybe even 50 were all owner finance. So when I did that, I was solving their problem by taking over mortgages, solving my problem because I didn't have any money, and then creating this portfolio. And it was interesting because I remember one of the lessons that I got from my best friend's parents, who his dad was an engineer, and he told me when he started, he probably made like 20 or $25,000 a year back in the early '80s. And he said at that point in his career, he said he was making like 10 times as much. So, probably 250 a year. And I remember when I was doing real estate, and there was a day where I made like 250,000 bucks, like literally cash. Like that's what I
Wow.
made by selling off a couple of my rentals. And I remember thinking, wow, I just created this by doing this thing, planting a seed, creating a forest, if you will, and letting seasons and rain and all the stuff happen, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fascinating moment in time where I remember going, huh, some other people would strive to spend 10 or 15 years being an engineer or doing something in a professional space. And what I just created by learning how to invest and letting capital and letting cycles work, that just created a year's worth of income. It created 2,000 hours of my time being exchanged. So that was all that stuff really works if you allow the time. And I did, but then my ego took over. And that's when the 150 houses that made me a bunch of money, got me a Ferrari, turned into other projects. And ultimately in 2008, my ego drove me off a cliff, and I went from 20 million to negative 5 million. And
Well,
that was that was when I thought I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I literally thought, oh, I can do no wrong. I'm so smart. I'm so rich, and I have a Ferrari. And I lost the Ferrari and lost the house, lost the girl, lost the dog. My life was a country song. It was, I don't know who plays me in the movie, but it was ugly. So that was the one that really took off and created a lot of wealth, and then created a lot of learning and lessons on the other side of 2008.
so with that, there's a guy that I know that he did something similar, and there's a couple things that I want to touch on with what you just said. But this guy, he used to do that. He used to go like buy and flip houses, and he got up to a pretty big portfolio. And he felt the same way. He was pretty much bulletproof. And all of a sudden, he found himself $3 million upside down, and lost all of his real estate. He almost lost the house he was in, lost all the cars, lost everything. And he got to the point where he's just said, "Okay, I'm done. I'm just going to kill myself." Because if I kill myself, my family will be good. It's like I've got all this life insurance, everything will be good. So, what was it? How did you feel when you were sitting there 5 million upside down? What was it that you felt, and how did you get yourself out of it?
Strangely enough, what you just said is the first time anybody's ever brought up a similar story. And a couple of things that happened on the other side of that thing, I wrote a book about the experiences. And what I found after I published the book called Reinvented Life, a lot of people reached out and said, wow, I thought I was the only one. Like a lot of people went through similar stuff. And one
Well,
of the things that I went through was what you were describing there. I was negative 5 million and I was just toast. And I thought, oh, I have a whole bunch of life insurance. I could solve this problem if I take myself out. Sadly, a friend of mine did that exact thing about 18 months ago. He was about $50 million upside down, and he created a big problem that ended up being, looks like, a giant fraud. And he killed himself. He killed himself like 2 weeks after I saw him. And
well,
that was how he got out of it. I had those thoughts, and what I thought was, wait, if I'm having these thoughts, I need to get rid of this outlet. So I canceled a bunch of life insurance because I thought this is too dangerous. So it made me really think differently about life insurance. And after that experience, I said, I need to be really, really careful because life insurance can give you a very easy out if you're not willing to deal with whatever you've done, like the consequences of your actions. So I spent about a year in denial. It's a river that I floated down, just ignoring reality and thinking, oh no, it's fine. Enjoying my American Express Black Card until they canceled it, and
Yeah.
like all this stuff. And it was it was about 2010. I finally said, okay, I got to figure out life. Like some things I can learn from this stuff and do the same thing over again at maybe a bigger scale, or there's probably something else I need to learn. So I spent a couple of years with a guy named Frank out in Texas, coaching, mentoring. Really, I mean, he's a therapist, and so digging down. And the way that I got through that was asking one question. This is the core question of Reinvented Life. The question is, what is true? And everybody can answer that. And then if you answer it again next week and you keep digging, you find that there's about 1,000 layers of what is true. And I kept going deeper and deeper. And what I got to was a place that I realized at my core, I love teaching. I love mentoring people. I love helping people create freedom. And it wasn't taking some book I read and then teaching people the book or going to school. It was literally taking the experiences that I knew to be true because I'd actually gone through them. It wasn't just some theory that I was regurgitating. And that's what I was meant to do. It was to find ways to teach people freedom by giving them tools that I had gone through, that I had personally experienced, because there's a different teaching when it comes from the wisdom of experience. Like there's a different energy. And that's what I realized was true. And it needed to be narrowed down to that mission of financial freedom, breaking people's financial shackles and their bondage. And that was that process. It was about 5 years of denial and then saying, okay, I need help because I can't see myself swing. I need somebody to help me and tell me the truth because I can't even see it. And then on the
Yeah.
other side of that, I started going out into the wild with a very, very different approach, different mission. It wasn't about the hedonistic tendency of more. That's what the 2000s were. It was, how many houses can I buy? How many tenants? How many different people can I work with that make me money? So it was about me. And even though there are other people that benefited with houses and investors, ultimately I was driving my own hedonistic tendencies for more stuff, which is never ending. And I mean, quite frankly, that's
Hmm.
sadly where most people are focused on: the money and the stuff and the more. And the more is never going to be enough. So you literally, you're just going and going, and then you die. And so I said, okay, wait, I need a different approach. And that's what changed. So about 5 years later, everything changed. In the last 10 years, everything has completely gone vertical because of that shift in energy and focus on other people. And ultimately, our own wealth and our growth ends up being a side effect of serving other people. But you got to focus on the focus, like not pretend you're focusing on that thing, but literally that focus is where I focus my time and energy.
That is really good. All of that. Because if I'm honest, I've heard so many people say that it's like, if you just focus on the clients and you just take care of them, then everything will work out and you'll make more money than you could ever believe. But you got to focus here. Don't focus on making more. But to hear that, to actually have a conversation with someone who is experiencing that on a massive scale, I think that it's good for me to hear, because that's my main focus. Is, yes, of course, we all need to pay bills. We all want to make money and do that thing. But when that's your only focus, is to make money, unfortunately, what I've seen, because I know some people not really associated with them anymore, but that's all they focus on, was making money. The client got the short end of the stick. It's like, well, unfortunately, I'm not going to do any extra for you because I said I would do this, and I've already done that, and I know you need X, Y, and Z that I could do, and it wouldn't take a lot of time, but I'm not going to do that unless you pay me double what you already pay me. It's like, but you could. You didn't help them the way you said you would. Doing what you actually need to do to help them would be more beneficial for you and for them. But unfortunately, not everyone looks at it the same way that you do. So I'm just fascinated to hear, when you what was the business that you ended up starting, when that really helped you focus on the clients, and when you were first doing that fulfillment, working with those clients, helping those people. When did it just start going vertical? Was it just compounding when you were getting more people? How did it look? Because you understand this with your 110,000 different companies, but there's so much complexity inside of just, well, you get a client, then you fulfill for a client, then you go. But as you scale, there's different complexities. So what did that look like? Can you take us through some of those different steps from when you went from 7 to 8 figures to 9 figures? What complexities you run into, and then how did you break through them, and while still being client or customer focused.
Well, there's a million things that you learn how much you don't know when you're going from these different spaces of zero to hero, and zero to a million to 10,
Yeah.
and so when I started, so after this whole 5-year process, I was in the metals business. This has been a family thing for 50 years, and so I was selling gold and silver, and that was I was giving people value, giving them actual metal, gold and silver, and I was making some money. But it wasn't really, I wasn't thinking of it in terms of a mission. It was just a business. It was a job. It was the cash so that I could survive. And what I started digging into when I learned about it was this whole retirement space, and I realized that most people are mindlessly going through their retirement planning, basically just doing what somebody's told them to do, and they're not thinking about it. They're just hoping that one day they'll have enough money that they can stop working at the thing they don't really like.
Yep.
So I created this thing called the EQRP, which is a type of retirement account where you get to control your assets. You get to invest in things that you actually like or care about or are interested in, whether it's real estate or Bitcoin or gold or a franchise or stocks. But most people are limited to stocks. And when I started this thing, I started it with this idea that I believe that there's something here that I can do that will help and impact a lot of people. Not just I'm going to go sell somebody something. But the big shift when it started really getting legs was two things. One, I said, okay, the mission is 1 million people that have their financial shackles broken, that we literally break the bondage of 1 million people so that they're financially free. So that's one. That's not just one person. That's like 1 million. And the ripple effect of 1 million people is the whole world shifts. There's a tilt because the ripple effect. And so that was the first thing. And then the second thing, I said, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make sure everybody in every location knows who I am, and I'm everywhere. And so I started going to all these seminars and was speaking and I was sponsoring and I was on planes all the time. And so this is the grind. The second part so you need to have a giant mission that's not just one person. And you can say, well, I just want to have a dry cleaner in my local community. Cool. Got it. I mean, that I don't know that we're necessarily here for something small. Like humans are funny creatures because we're the only species that says, I'm going to live up to half my potential. You don't see a tree that says, I'm going to grow to half my potential. It grows all the way up and then it dies at some point. But you go to the redwoods, none of those redwoods said, we're going to go 20 feet and stop because we're done. Like we're going to retire. It's one of the dumbest things that humans have ever thought of. So you've got to have this big thing. What's your potential? So I'm asking myself that. And that was the 1 million people. And then the second part was the thing that nobody wants to do because apparently work is a 4-letter word. Like I see all these, especially 20s and 30s, these kids that, and your age, that so many of them, they feel entitled to something and they don't want to do the work. And I was like, look, now is the time to do the work because soon we're going to have robotics and AI that's going to knock out the opportunities you presently have. The opportunities are here. Like I think we're going into a major shift because of these exponential technologies and all that stuff, whether it's programming, whether it's accounting, whether it's legal, all these different things are going to be taken over by code. So I said, all right, well, at the moment, this is 10 years ago, I said, I'm just going to go grind. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to work harder than anybody else. And I'm going to serve people and I'm going to give them 10 times more than they're paying me for. And all these things are like crazy ideas. And I say crazy, not that nobody else is doing them. Some people are, but most people are like, okay, well, if I give you, like, you need to give me money and then I'll do something. Like they literally look at people like a fireplace. And they say, okay, give me heat, I'll give you wood. I'm like, that doesn't, no, you got to go grow the tree. And then you cut down the tree and then you feed the fire and then you get some heat. And this crap means you're going to be cold for a while. But people want to be warm and they want to feel good and they don't want to do the work and they don't want to struggle. And unfortunately, most people are very soft in society and they're going to get run over. So when I said I'm going to do this grind, people came up to me and they said, you're literally everywhere. You're on every podcast, you're on every seminar. And there was no way to catch that. And that's one of the big, it's like a hack. Like I love Tim Ferriss, but the 4-hour work week doesn't work if you're going to say, I'm going to go work 4 hours and I'm going to VA everything, because somebody else is going to work 8 hours or 12 hours or 50 hours and they're going to have your tools and they're going to kick your ass. So I did the grind and I watched the community, because the EQRP is all about giving people freedom and bringing them together. So it's not just giving a tool, because a tool can be commoditized and copied. It's R&D is about ripping off and duplicating. That's what most companies do. And people are like, oh, that's cool, I'll just take it. So it has to be bigger. So bringing people together was what started to bring us vertical. And we kept growing and we were doubling the company over and over again. And then that led into these other things, which ultimately led to Frame Tech. So that's the manufacturing company that is, I mean, right now the valuation, 2 years ago was a napkin, and today it's worth $500 million. And that's
Wow.
because community came together, timing and relationships. And we've been working our asses off, not for a minute, but 10 years, 20 years, our innovation officer, the patriarch, the guy that came up with this, has been doing this since the 70s for 50 years. Everybody wants all the free stuff. They want the fast stuff. They want the Instagram billions. And they go, oh, it's a year or two and I'm a billionaire. I like Peter Thiel is right in 0 to 1. 100% correct. You can create something, have an idea, and be a billionaire in 2 years. That is also like saying my goal and my plan is to win the lottery, because
Hmm.
there's a ton of great ideas, but the execution and the timing and the market and all these things, they have to work together. And the way that you get really lucky is you grind and you focus and you do it, and you don't do it for a year. You do it for a decade, 2 decades. Nobody wants to do it. They all want to be like 30 and a debutante, or they want, they want to have their jet. And I'm like, okay, I got it. I do too. But the differentiator, the people that make it, are the ones that get so lost in their work, like Elon. When they told him he was the richest guy in the world, he said, huh, interesting, went right back to work. Didn't give a shit. Like, he was so focused on the world disrupting thing, and it can be community disrupting, whatever it is. You could be Joe Rogan podcasting. Like, I don't think it really matters. It matters that you go all in. And that's like Grant Cardone. It's funny because all these people that have influenced me, like in his book Be Obsessed or Be Average, Boba, like, you got to be
Hmm.
obsessed, man. You got to be obsessed about something, and then go like to where your people, and you mentioned your people have changed around you. You got to get so into it where people are like, you're freaking crazy. I love it when people go, man, you're no fun. Like, Friday night, they're out getting wasted, and I'm over there studying. I might be at a wine bar, but I got books. I've got things I'm studying. I'm taking notes. I'm writing another book. Like, that's the difference. People that are creating changes in the world, that are creating incredible wealth, they're not doing all the football Fridays. Like, they're not looking
No.
forward to Friday, man. They're like, is it Monday yet? Because I want to talk to the people. I want to like build things. I want to get engaged. That's what they're looking forward to. And everybody else is like, is it Friday yet, man? I want to get wasted. I want to watch some football. I got my jerseys. I'm like, bro, you're going to have the same life you've had the last 20 years for the next 20 years, because you're not changing anything and you're not giving any more than you're getting paid for. So that's been the big shift. And then all of a sudden you go, wow, 7, 8, 9 figures. And like literally 7, 8, 9, it happens in a compressed time frame. And then we'll go from 9, 10 figures will happen in the next 16 months. That's $1 billion.
Yeah.
That's a unicorn. People go, unicorns. How do you get a unicorn? Well, first you got to get off your ass and do something past the 40 hours a week. And then things start happening, but you got to do it for a period of time. And then, wow, magic, overnight success story that took 4 freaking decades.
Yeah. Man, you are firing me up. This is blessing me because yes, absolutely. I'm a millennial, and I have seen it time and time again in my life because I've gone through some really hard times and I've had to work. Like, there's no option. I'm going to have to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week just to put food on the table. So I've done that in a job, I've done that with a business. So, but I've seen it with people around me is even unfortunately with family members, they'll tell me, they've come up to me after the successes that we've had. It's like, okay, Stephen, here's my idea and this is what I want to do. And this is how I'm going to do it. And it's like, okay, great. And then I'll visit with them 6 months later, and they're in the same exact spot. It's like, you didn't take any action. Or they'll ask me, "Hey, what do we need to do?" And we will sit down. My wife and I will sit down with them, show them this is what you need to do, and then they won't do it. And then they're surprised when they try to call me next time and I don't pick up the phone. It's like, I'm not going to keep wasting my time because you're not taking action. And I think that that's for people listening to this. Take action on what he's saying and be willing to work and suffer. People don't like that word suffering, but honestly, that is where your character is built. You wouldn't be able to handle a $500 million company if you didn't go through being 5 million upside down and all the successes and failures. It's not just about the success that builds you, it's also the failures, what not to do. That's probably even more important than the actual success.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's the thing. People go, 25 years ago, I was talking to a guy at a conference. I think it was the first conference I went to. And I went up to him and I said, I'd like to, he was a lender. And I said, I'd love to do some work with you, borrow some money. He's like, how many deals have you done? And I said, one. This is January 2000. I'd done one deal. I bought one rental house, had no idea what I was doing. It was on my credit card. And I was like, I'm an investor. And he goes, cool. He's like, why don't you reach out to me after you've gone bankrupt a couple times? And I was like, you're a jackass. And you know what? He was right, because I didn't have the emotional or spiritual temperament
Yeah.
or wisdom, or like, I wasn't that guy. Like, I wasn't a unicorn. You have to be a unicorn. You want to own a unicorn, you got to be a unicorn. And so I said, well, okay, you're an idiot. Well, he wasn't. I was the idiot. I just didn't know it yet. And in 2008, I learned part of that. And like, I forget what the book was, but it was there's literally a thermostat for our wealth and how we
Yep.
perceive ourselves. And I resonated. I was reading this book during it was a birthday up in Canada years ago, and I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Like, this is like, if our thermostat is like, there's a reason that people make 50,000 or 100,000 and they make it every year. There are people that make $1 million a year and they make it every year. Imagine, it's like a magic. And there are people that make 10 or 50 or 100 million a year and they do it every single year. Why? Are they 1,000 times smarter? Do they work 1,000 times more hours? No, that's what they expect. Like, they literally, that's who they are. Nothing else makes sense. They don't do things the same as you and I do. Like, and when you start shifting and you stretch yourself and you knock yourself away from the people that are influencing you, like, osmotically, we will become those people that are around us in every freaking way. It's their money, it's their what, it's their fitness. Like, if you're around a bunch of fat people, you're gonna have a third butt.
You're gonna be fat.
This is how it works. And
Yep.
your integrity. If you're around a bunch of con artists, you're gonna end up in jail. And so you start putting yourself in bigger and crazier and like wilder things, and then eventually they're just normal. It's like, oh, this is how I think. What's really weird is when you end up going back around your family or people that you knew 20 years ago, and you've been in this intense vibrational state. We call it it's perturbation. It's Prigoghine's theory of dissipative structure. When you put pressure on something like an organic thing, you put pressure on a caterpillar, it turns into a butterfly. It can't go back.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with humans. Once you put pressure and you're like, okay, I'm vibrating. It's suffering. Like, I don't know if a caterpillar suffers during this process, but I know that as a caterpillar popping into this other form in my own life, a lot of pain. And Joe Rogan said it with his plunge. He's like, man, I get in the cold plunge because I do the thing that freaking hurts every day. And it's like 30 freaking some degrees. And he goes in there for however many minutes. He's like, I'm going to go do the thing that hurts, that's painful, and everything else is easy after that. Everybody wants a hot shower. Nobody wants to jump in the cold. I have a plunge that I can see from where I'm sitting right now. And that thing, it's like, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to go in that thing. But I know every time I go into it, my body, like, the inflammation goes down. I'm clear, I'm focused. And I'm like, man, I just killed that thing that hurt. I did it. I'm like psycho. Like, I'm going to go do the thing that hurts. Like, I know this, it's like stabbing yourself with a lot of ice. And so you do this thing. And I'm just constantly doing that in different ways. And I think the most of society, and this is who you're competing with, most of society is all about hot showers. And if you can say, I'm going to go straight into the ice bath, and that's how I'm going to start my day, in whatever way that is, maybe it's literal. Maybe it's you go get a freaking ice plunge or get a bucket and sit in it with a bunch of ice. It doesn't matter. But if you're doing that, you're going to shift your ability to see the world differently. You're going to act differently. You're going to stop really caring what people think about you. And that's the biggest problem with, I think, most people, that they hesitate. You made a comment about the failures. The reason we are afraid to fail is because, one, we grew up being told, don't fail. If you get more than 50% wrong, you're a failure. And if you get 50% wrong in real life and you get 50% right, you're in the Hall of Fame and you're a billionaire. Like, that's how that works. So why are we afraid of it? Because the judgment. Because at an anthropological level, like, if you think about 1 million years ago, what did people need? They needed other people, because if you didn't have other people and you're by yourself, some damn tiger is going to eat you. Like, literally, that is a life and death deal. So you want to fit in, you want to blend in, you want to have this tribe. Animals do this in the wild. Nowadays, people have the same mentality. I want to have people around me. I want them to like me. I want them to be close by, because if I'm by myself, I'm going to be eaten. I can tell you, Stephen, that unless you are from Alaska like I was, where I had to dodge polar bears, no joke, I had to dodge polar bears working in the Arctic Circle, or you go to Africa and you try to line up lions, which I was there, and they told me, don't line up lions, cubs, because mama will come do things. And like, literally, the lady before us got killed by this lion because she tried to line up cubs. If you're not on safari or you don't work in Alaska, you're not going to be eaten. Or I guess if you dive with great whites, which I did one time, and they will eat you, and they don't mess around. But okay, most days you're not in that situation, of any of those situations. But that's the failure judgment problem. People are so concerned about, somebody's going to judge me, and then my itty bitty tiny sensitive feelings. Like, everything is about your feelings. Nobody gives a shit about your feelings. Like, they're going to eat you for lunch. Literally, everybody is going to eat you, and they're going to eat you in the marketplace. And that's what you have to get over. So all those failures gives you this resiliency, like Tim Grover talks about in his books. It gives you resiliency, and you stop caring what people think. You care about what the market thinks. You start thinking about what does it matter for me to, like, I'm thinking about the significance of my life. That's what matters. You're judging yourself against your potential. That's what it's all about. It has nothing to do with you judging yourself against Jeff Bezos or Oprah or whatever, whoever, or a professional whatever player. It's about your potential. That's who your judgment, like, comparison person should be. Who am I? I can tell you the thing that I've heard from people that have been in their 70s and 80s, and they're on the edge. They're about to expire. That the quote that I heard that they've all said in different ways was, hell is meeting the person that you could have been at the end of your life. And you go, oh,
Mm-hmm.
damn. And that regret that people experience, like my dad had this a few weeks before he died. We were sitting there and he just made one comment that brought me to tears. He said, man, there were so many things that I wanted to do. He was just sitting there. I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. And we both started crying. And he shared that moment. So people are either a warning or an example. That was a warning. He was not saying, do what I did. He's like literally in his own way saying, do not do what I did. And it's really sad that most people are tiptoeing safely to death's door only to meet the person that they could have been. And they go, oh, damn it, I'm out of time. And that's what he was. And it broke my heart. And that's part of this mission. It's to break people out of that space where they're playing so safe and they're trying to get there without getting hurt, without getting a scratch. I'm like, man, what's my degree in? It's in mud and blood, man. I went to the School of Hard Knocks and the University of getting the crap kicked out of me. That's my school. Like, it's in the trenches, the mud, the blood. People don't want to go there. They're like, oh man, I just want it to be easy and nice and fun and cuddly. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to vomit. So I think that's where we are. And that's where, I mean, for what it's worth, I think that there's a playbook to not only success, but significance. Jim Buford in his book, Halftime, talks about this. And the sooner you can understand significance and shift your focus to significance and not success, your life is going to be a lot more fulfilled. It's not going to just be fancy. It's going to be a life where you're actually deeply happy. Not just going, man, how can I hedonistically numb myself again because my life sucks?
That is extraordinary advice. All of that. There's a story that reminds me of, I've swam my whole life. I'm half Hawaiian. My mom is from Hawaii, so swimming is in my DNA. And I remember one time I was at the beach. I'm standing knee deep in the ocean, and the waves are crashing over me. They're decent size. And I kept wanting to jump in, but I was scared because I kept envisioning that there was a great white in these waves that were under 6 feet. And then I realized, and I asked myself a question. I said, is that true? And I said, probably not. And then I just closed my eyes and actually visualized a great white being right there about to eat me. And I said, I'm jumping in anyways. And I jumped in anyways. I think that there's so many times we let our own minds, our own mindsets get in the way of who we could become. That's what I love about what you said, talking about significance over success. Because when I look at my family, I love my parents. My parents did the best they could. And they're living way below who they were called to be. There's a version of them that was supposed to happen. And they didn't believe it was even possible until they saw somebody take action on it. I quit my job in 2020. There wasn't anything to fall back on. I took everything out of my 401k and deferred the taxes just to give myself a chance. And the business we had gets shut down. We had to start another business. My parents are telling me I'm crazy. They're saying I need to go get another job. And then that business goes from 0 to $1 million in less than a year. They saw it. And then after that, they never questioned it. Every time when we've had to restart, when we've had to sit there and climb Mount Everest on our face, when Mount Everest is made out of broken glass, they never ask any questions except, hey, are you okay? They're not trying to tell me to do anything else because they've seen it. Like, I'm willing to suffer because I believe that there's a greater version of me that when I'm on my deathbed, because I have a son, I'm not just doing this for me. And I don't believe in the legacy of I can build something so big that it'll just be with him forever. The Vanderbilts literally disproved that. The Vanderbilts were extraordinary rich, and it was all gone in like 2 generations. So for me, it's not about what I can leave behind as far as success material. It's about what I can leave behind with significance. I want him to see a life that I've had to grind and I've had to hustle and I've had to go through tough times unimaginable to most people. And on the other side of it, what that looks like. Because at the end of the day, if he knows that, hey, you can have fear, you can feel that. You can. I've done the cold plunges. I've done all the things, worked out, done all of that. It's not going to eliminate fear. You just have to move in spite of it. And for me, that's my biggest thing, that if I can give him that, because the world's changing. I mean, by the time I'm gone, who knows? Maybe we'll all be flying around. We'll all be Iron Man. Who knows? But there's some principles that will remain the same. Like, you'll still be afraid of something. There's still somebody that's going to outwork you. So just being able to move in spite of that is extraordinary. But I want to give you some time to talk about Frame Tech. Talk about the things that you're doing now. What does that look like?
So Frame Tech's one of those things that's moving in spite of the fear. It's interesting because there's so much. 3 years ago, it's funny how we get in our own way. Our minds are our greatest weapon. It's our greatest villain enemy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it really depends how conscious you are. I got into the practice of being able to observe my thinking and observe myself through that work I did with Frank a decade ago. And so I can observe when I'm doing things, and I'm like I laugh at myself a lot. So it's sort of funny if you were to videotape me in my house, you just see me laughing at myself, and you're like, is he okay? But it's just because I think it's funny how I'm thinking. I'm like, huh, that's interesting
Mm-hmm.
to think that way. So, for example, like 3 years ago, I got this a friend of mine of 25 years hands me that he says, I need to hand you this deal. And I'm like, all right, so fine, just email it to me. He goes, no, I want to hand it to you. So he prints it and flies to Texas and gives me this deal. And I'm
Wow.
laughing. I'm like, all right, he's OG, man. He's in his 60s, and he hands me this. He's like, okay, look at it. I was like, yeah, I'll look at it. And I didn't. And he kept, about every month, he's like, so can you like, what do you think? I'm like, man, I'm busy. I'm doing other stuff. I got a technology thing I'm doing, and land stuff, and all these things. He's like, golly. And so he's losing his mind because like this is his thing. And so ultimately 6 months later, I looked at this deal and I was like, this is BS. There's nothing, this doesn't even work. Like there's no way this is real. Because what are we taught? That if it seems too good to be true, it probably
It
is.
is. Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way. So I said, all right, because I love you and I've known you for a long time, I'm interested. I'm curious. I was more curious than interested,
Right.
because I said, there's no way this thing can be real. So my partner and I flew out to Arizona. We were in Alabama, flew out to Arizona, about 2 miles from where I'm sitting now. I moved out here because of this thing. And we sit down with these guys, and they have this vision. They want to disrupt the construction industry. They have this vision that they've been the founder of the idea, Marvin, has like a manufacturing plant in his mind. And I was like, okay, this he's in his 70s, and he's got this vision. He's had it for 20 plus years and all this experience. And I was like, all right, so I'm listening to him and really interested, because these guys are just down to earth, man. They've been doing the thing. They bleed sawdust. And I was like, all right, so these guys know what they're doing. They've been doing it a long time. The problem is they didn't have $40 million. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, huh, all right. Well, I didn't have $40 million either. But what I did have is an incredible community. And I knew that if I believed in something, and my partner David believed in something, and we got behind it, we were convinced that it would work. So this is where you say, all right, we're gonna make a plunge. At lunch, I said, all right, you got your $40 million. And they said, thank you. And they walked off, and they said, these two guys are full of crap. There's no way that they're giving us $40 million. So we go back and we start sharing this with our community, all these people that we've been working with, that we've built trust with, we've built relationships with. And so we brought the money together, and like literally 2 weeks later, we said, okay, we started sending money over, bought the land. Like we had a napkin. We raised all this money, brought our people together. It was a napkin. It was a bunch of paper, but it was just best guess. And we started building. And what was fascinating was watching the tailwinds, watching when you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing, when you're on purpose, all sorts of magic happens. Like you have like red tape went away. Things that were supposed to take 6 or 8 weeks or months to get through bureaucracy took hours and days, like permits, boom, done. And so 2 years in, we have a plant that is built. We have our machinery being put up. It's custom machinery that's built in Europe. And so we'll be producing these pieces and our stuff this summer. So in 2 years, we went from a napkin to a company that's worth $500 million. And when it's online and running, it'll be worth the process. There's 2 plants, and they'll be worth over $2 billion. That's what we built. Now, what the hell is it? Like, okay, cool. You have an idea. You're going to disrupt something. Everybody wants to disrupt something, or at least that's a lot of the unicorn talk. We're going to do something totally different. Well, what we said was, look, construction hasn't changed in 50 years. The last innovation was the nail gun. I mean, no joke. This is like nothing changes. It's kind of like education. Everything's the same, and everybody tries to maintain their monopoly. And so these guys had this idea to take the entire framing process, which is very, very, there's a big problem in America. Nobody wants to swing a hammer. They said, let's vertically integrate the whole thing and let's use innovation and invention to reduce or eliminate the waste. And so that's what this is. What we've done is we've created a process where we build all the bones. So we're talking the floors, the walls, the roofs, and this is all wood. So 92% of framing or building in America and most of the world, at least in America, is wood. So we're like, okay, we're doing the thing that most people are doing, but we're going to do it way different. And so to give you an idea of what this looks like, somebody says, okay, I want to build a house. And we say, great, we give us the plans. We take those plans, we convert them to our plans. We build all the bones in our plant. And then our team takes all those pieces out. This is a custom house. This is not like a prefab or manufactured. We take this custom house and we go put it together and we hand it off to the builder and we say, okay, here's your house. That process takes 2 weeks. Normally that's a 2 to
Wow.
3 month process. So
Yeah.
we've cut the timeline down by 75, 80%. And because the way that we're doing it, it's patented technology that with our process, normally, this is crazy. I didn't even know this until recently. A normal 2,000 square foot house, kind of an average house, has about 3 dumpsters, 40-yard dumpsters of wood that's thrown away, all these trees from these forests. Each house, our process has eliminated 90% of that. We have a third of a dumpster, and that's basically just corner cuts and things. And so we've done this thing where now we're building things inside of a contained environment. So our tolerances are super small. It's like building a Toyota versus building a car from scratch. Like it's super tight. And so everything is accurate. And then we've reduced the waste to almost nothing. And we can do this thing in 75, 80% less time. So this is disruptive. This is not an incremental change in construction. And we have the entire country watching us doing this. And they're excited and they're panicked because this is completely disruptive of the entire system. And it allows us to solve a problem. The problem is we have between 5 and 8 million missing housing units in America. And we don't have capacity coming online. It's just not. And that's what we're helping to solve with FrameTech. Like literally, it's so exciting because we're doing something, we're building something. And for anybody that's not built something, man, go build something. It doesn't matter what it is, but go build something. Build a company, build a dog house, build something. Like there's something there's a feeling when you build something, you're like the satisfaction. Like I built something. I didn't just shuffle things. I didn't move papers around. There's no real satisfaction. It's just shuffling things. But we're all meant to build, like we're all meant to be ants in some way. And this gives us a chance to build that, not just to support a community with all the housing and the jobs and everything. It also, like everybody, all the stakeholders win. And it's very, very interesting to be in not a I win, you lose environment, which is very, very much Wall Street and most of society. It's like, if I win, you're going to lose. And people like love that, or they think that's how it has to be. Everybody here wins: the environment, the community, the investors. I mean, people are like, these people trusted us and they said, we're going to bet on you guys. And that's what investing is. It's investing. It's betting on people, not necessarily the thing. And they said, we love the thing. We really love you. We really trust you. And so 40 million, and now we're at 100 million that's come in and been bet on this as we expand into a second plant. That's what America needs. Like the renaissance and resurgence of America needs people that are willing to be bold, like Peter Diamandis talks about in his book Bold or Abundance, like really being bold, being willing to say, okay, I'm going to go into this thing and I believe in it. I believe in the people. And then like let it loose. And this whole playing safe and playing not to lose, like we've all seen teams that they're up and they start playing not to lose and they lose. So we need less of that. We need people that are bold. And the reality is nothing's going to eat you when you go bankrupt a couple of times, which, I've done that whole process, and it doesn't mean you have to do it, but it doesn't mean that your life is over. In fact, you're going to get stronger, better, and your temperature of wealth and abundance is actually going to go up in that process. And that's the gift. That's what people don't realize. Like there's an incredible gift when you fall on your face. It's like, oh, when you get up, and you can, if you choose, it's mental, you get up, you're like, oh, okay, got it. I just learned something. Like you're either learning or you're winning. But the only time you lose is when you don't learn. Like if you fail, you're like, you learn or you lose. And I just, people don't realize the value in that. And so where does it all start? It starts on saying, okay, I'm going to go after something that's bold, that solves problems for other people, not just your own hedonistic needs to consume. And I think that's where like this whole you society that's happened, where it's all about you. No, it's about other people, like them use, not you. Like when you detach from your own needs, the side effect is unbelievable amounts of wealth. Like if you say, I want to be a millionaire, no, forget about you being a millionaire. Go figure out how to make 10 other people or 100 other people millionaires. Guess who's going to become a millionaire by default? You. Like that's the shift. It's not about saying, forget about you for a second and just let God, let the universe do its thing. And it is magic. I promise.
That you said something that I love is you either win or you learn. And that's just reframing what failure looks like. And it took me, I was actually reading Chip Gaines' book, and he talked about that. And I went, that's a fantastic perspective, because what I've realized over the course of being in business, which I haven't been in business near as long as you have, but being in business, like you said, is either win or you learn. But the fascinating part about winning or learning is that you only lose when you quit. So you can never honestly lose. Like, yes, of course, your circumstances can get bad. Maybe you go homeless. Maybe you lose the car. Maybe you lose the house. Maybe you don't have food in the pantry. That doesn't mean that you've lost. You are learning. It's like, okay, in that process of learning, honestly, there in the last year, I've had to learn how to build a business with no capital, with no softwares, with nothing, because we had nothing, because we gave up a big business, big to us. And what we had to do is we had to rebuild. You get creative. And what's fascinating when you get creative and you focus on others and not you is you can actually do some things that you never thought were even possible. And that's when you start, like you said earlier, that's when you start changing the temperature on the thermostat is you go, wait, what is possible? Like, I think that that's why I'm so grateful for you being on the show and sharing with all of us is because you're helping people understand what's possible. Because if you don't know that it's possible, you'll never even try. Unless you're one of those crazy people, you just say, "Hey, I don't care if it's possible or not. I'm going to Mars." And there's a select few of us that are like that. But for the rest of the people who need some kind of proof, just hearing it from someone makes it possible. Now, if it's possible, I'll at least go try it. And usually, if you can try and just keep trying and keep trying and keep going, and you learn or you win, that is where the success really happens. But Damion, how can we support you? And how can we support Frame Tech? How can we support your businesses? How can we support your social media? How can we support you?
I want everybody in America to know that Frame Tech exists. This is
Yes.
frametech.com. And here's why. It doesn't matter what you do with it. It doesn't matter whether you say, I love this, I want to invest in it. It doesn't matter if you say, I want to have a Frame Tech in my, we have 6 locations that are heading east, in Texas and the Carolinas and Tennessee and Florida. And it's like, this is going to show up everywhere. The reason that I want everybody to go check out FrameTech is because this is the model for building something, not just rolling the dice and saying, I hope that my software becomes a gazillion-dollar company, but like literally saying, okay, here's a problem and here's a solution and here's all the pieces that give it. I wrote a book called Unicornomics. It's the first 15% that gives you 85% likelihood of success. It's like all the business principles, first thinking, and what you see when you look at FrameTech is you see, okay, this is what the team needs to look like. This is what skin in the game looks like when you have people that are promoting something that have millions of their own dollars. When you have one of the founders that moved across the country and planted his butt next to the plant and is right there. It's like everybody is all in. You see all the things. You see the relationships that build the base of it. You see the relationships that are like our builders, our manufacturers of the equipment that we're using. We've gone over to Europe and spent time with them. We broke bread with them. We spent time with them, getting to know them and understanding their systems and what, like really building that stuff. All those pieces that are there, understanding the capital. I think that in general, you should not, if you're starting out or you're in your first run of your first few businesses or whatever, having a bunch of capital is dumb. It makes you dumb. Capital makes you dumb. Like I can't say this more directly than that. If you have to, like when I bought that first house, I had to get creative. I had to figure out how am I going to remodel a house without any money? How am I going to buy a house without any money? And so I think if when you start there, one, you realize, wow, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of capital in my brain. It's not necessarily in a bank account. And two, when you go out and you actually have capital, you respect it a lot more. There's a difference. If you just start with capital, I mean, I've had companies where I started them and I had a bunch of capital, and I mean, the dumb decisions you make when you have a bunch of money, like we need this really expensive furniture. We haven't even sold anything yet, but we're buying, $5,000 desks. And I've seen that happen. There was a company in the manufacturing space that thought they were going to revolutionize manufacturing, spent $2 billion in California to build, and the whole thing went bankrupt because these guys, they were Google guys and they had a bunch of Google money and they were arrogant as crap. They did not have the industrial and institutional knowledge or experience. And they went, oh, we can do this. We're so smart. They had no idea what they were doing. They didn't understand the nuance. So going into a place and understanding the key people that you need, like FrameTech literally could be a case study that Harvard and Wharton and all these business schools use. And it very well may be. I mean, it would make sense because this is what it looks like to not only build something, to invest in something. I also think that we need a heck of a lot more of this in America to, when you hear the whole make America great again, this is literally building back America and making it great. Forget the politics. It's literally, this is what it looks like to build something. And when we build things, we become stronger, more resilient when we're just consumers, which is what we've been taught. I mean, shit, think about what happened after 9/11. What did George Bush say? Go buy stuff. Like, really? That's what we need to do as Americans. Go back, because we're just like a bunch of consumers, and instead we're out there, and yeah, there's a ton of wealth being created, a lot of money being created. We fell in love with was this process. When you fall in love with the process, you forget about the outcome. You know that's your North Star, but you're in love with this process. You're like, man, I don't want this to end. We all love it. So I would encourage everybody that's listening, watching, go check out FrameTech. Either check out the website or come to Arizona and come visit. Like, let us take you on a tour and see it, see what it looks like. And then maybe you get inspired just a little bit to go do your thing. Maybe you say, man, I want to be involved in this thing. Like, it doesn't matter to me which thing it is, other than it needs to be something that is helping you get to your potential, because that's what we need in society. We need people focusing on their potential, building, growing, serving other people, not tearing people down, tearing them apart. We got plenty of that. We got,
Yeah.
plenty of people taking. We need giving, we need supporting, we need abundance mindset. And that's what FrameTech represents. It represents abundance and building and a brighter future than the past. Like, it's all the good stuff, man. It's like a candy store. Like, you just go in there, you're like, man, everything tastes good here. Like, this is really, I love this. Like being a kid, everything is good. There's no bad. We got to be an adult and everything's bad all of a sudden. So I would encourage people, come check out FrameTech. Like, literally dive into it, see what we got going on, and then reach out to me there. Like, you can find me on FrameTech, but that, I think it could potentially change your life by digging into it, because you'll see, wow, this is the opposite of what CNN and Fox and MSNBC and my neighbors and my cousins and my parents and like everybody's saying all the negative stuff. And man, this is like a bright light on the hill that's just shining, and it's beckoning to people, please go do, build, create. And I think that is so incredibly valuable at this time in history.
It absolutely is. That, honestly, this whole podcast has been so inspiring to me. If no one else gets anything from this, I know I got so much from it, because just for me, there's one big nugget in what you just said and in what you've said, at least for me in this entire show, is just significance over success. Like, even what you're saying with FrameTech is you're not worried about it becoming a billion. You've mentioned it once. What matters most to you is it being an example. Like, go build, go become significant. And significance is, of course, there's matter of opinion. What is significance? But that's what's great about it, because in today's culture, especially my age group and younger, significance is the big house and the Ferrari that you had and all of those things. Like, that is significance, but it's not. Like, you get there and then you go, wait, this is just another car. I've still got to put gas in it. This is a big house. I've still got to pay the bills on it. Man, I think that it's just so fascinating, and I'm just so thankful that you were here with us today.
I appreciate that. Let me share one other thing that I think is really important for I remember back when I was 20 and I had my vision board, and I have vision boards now, and they have really cool things. They have shiny things. Like my experience or what I've envisioned now is very different than what I envisioned back then. Now it's about experiences with people in beautiful environments. That's really what it is. And then building things. And back then it was all the Ferraris and like all these, it was just a lot of shiny stuff. And there is nothing wrong with shiny stuff. It's not like a Ferrari isn't here. In fact, a Ferrari is beautiful. But what I would suggest and encourage people to do is go rent the experience, rent the thing. Like, instead of waiting until you're 60 and saying, I'm going to buy a Corvette when I'm 60, when I retire, or whatever that thing is for you, go rent the experience, have the experience. If you find that, oh my God, I'm in love with Ferraris, maybe you need to shift your entire life and focus on Ferraris and become a racer or collector, like, who knows? But when you have that experience, oftentimes what it does is it satisfies this thing instead of spending 40 years waiting for that moment where you're like, oh, okay, I had the experience. It's like crossing the finish line. Okay, great. Now what? So having those experiences, it's so easy with Turo and Airbnb and like all these things to have these experiences. And so the material stuff that we've been taught is so important. We see Kylie Jenner or all these different influencers, and they're like, look at my bag, look at my 47 bags, and like all the junk that's out there. Is that going to make you happy? I mean, every time you hit buy on Amazon, or you go and you go to the mall or whatever people do, however you shop, you're excited for a second, and then you forget about the thing, and then it becomes something in your storage unit. And ultimately, what happens is if you can get to the place where you fall in love with the process, you fall in love with the environment and the people, and you get that stuff out of your system by just trying it. Like, I remember one time I said, I think I actually want a Corvette. I had a Ferrari. I want a Corvette. I'm going to go rent a Corvette. Had a Corvette for 2 days, gave it back. I was like, that's perfect. I'm done. I completed my Corvette need. And instead of spending freaking years or decades or imagining, like, I want to live in the Tuscan Hills, I want to go out there, Cool. Go on vacation. Go spend a week or a month like it's not that expensive. And
Yeah.
people they build this stuff up in their mind. And ultimately, if you can start having the experience to where you can anchor to it and go, yeah, that was incredible. And I want to do that every year. Or sometimes you'll find the thing that you're like, this is me. Most of the time, it's not you. It's just a thing that you got attached to because somebody said it was really cool or you saw a really cool
Yeah.
picture. And there's a big opportunity to start saying, okay, I did it and I'm letting go, and it opens space in your mind and in your heart to go and spend the time on things that really do matter deeply, where you pour yourself into them. That's what I'm trying to get at. When you
Yeah.
cut away all of this mental storage space, your brain's thinking about all this stuff, and then you go, okay, cool, I've got all this time and energy, and I'm going to focus on something that really matters. You fall in love with that, and then your life is like, oh, can't wait to wake up on Monday morning. Not, oh shit, is it Friday yet? Like there's a very different approach to life.
Yes.
So that was my experience with Ferraris and all that stuff that I think is on a lot of people's minds and what they think they want. And I would just encourage you, go experience it, taste it before you decide you want the whole buffet and you spend 40 years waiting for the buffet. Go nibble and go, yeah, cool, done.
That's fantastic advice. I've heard it said, I mean, this is probably 5, 6 years ago. No, it was longer than that. 7 years ago. I heard it said, go smell the leather. Like for my wife and I, we go on house tours. Like we'll go tour a multi-million-dollar house, and then when they ask us what do we think about it, it's like, oh, we always nitpick it. It's like, I didn't really like the kitchen. I think the kitchen could be a little better here. But honestly, I'm not doing it from a place. I'm doing it from a place where I put myself in the position that I could buy this. Where it's like, I could buy this right now. Now, does my bank account reflect that? Not yet. But for me, is when I put myself in that position, it's like, what do I actually like? And do I actually want this much space? What's crazy is that for the longest time, the dream was 10,000 square feet or more. We went and looked at some that was 10,000 square feet, and I went, this is a massive house. It's like, I don't even know what I'd do with all this. And then we went to one that was 6,000 square feet, and I went, I actually can understand where the family would get together, and it has this theater space, and I know exactly how we'd use that, and this is where we put the guests. And that made more sense to me than the dream. So you got to go smell the leather. If you want a Corvette, just go to the Chevy dealership and go smell one. Go see if you even fit. I'm 6'4". So being 6'4", I can't fit in everything. So I have to go experience it. Like one of my buddies, he has a brand new Corvette, beautiful. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. And he let me sit in it. My head was right on the top. And I thought, okay, I can get this. He also has a Lamborghini. He said, I'm not even going to go get that out. You can't fit. And I went, all right then. that just crushed that dream for me. But that's experiencing life. And then I get to change my perspective. Why does that even matter? I realize being tall, as I get older, my knees hurt. That's a long way down to the ground. It's like, maybe that's not the dream anymore. But I just thank you for that advice. For me and for everyone listening, is go experience life. Don't wait. You don't have to wait. Like absolutely, first and foremost, go build. You build first, it opens up doors and options for you to go experience. But go experience and then see, maybe you go drive the Ferrari and you love the Ferrari so much that you go get a Ferrari, but go test it first. Because you may test it and hate it. You may say, I actually hate this thing. And now you don't want it. Go explore the house. Go look at the condo. See if that even makes sense for you. Maybe you find out you only want a 2,000 square foot house because that's actually where you feel the most loved and cared about. Your family's actually together instead of on the whole opposite side of the property. So, yes, absolutely. Damion, thank you again. This one went a lot longer than most do, but this has been an absolute blessing. And like I said, I could let this keep going all day, but you are a busy man with about 700 companies and about $2 bazillion worth of capital to invest. So I just want to thank you again for being here with us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and hope everybody got a lot of value. And honestly, if one person does one thing, that's enough. And I think there's an intention that my life matters when it ripples into somebody else's life. So it's as much as there's a focus on a million, every one matters. It's the same thing with that story about the starfish on the beach, and every starfish matters. And even if it doesn't seem like it, other people are criticizing. I'm happy to spend an hour when I know that it's going to change one life. And if it changes a million, that's awesome. And more is better in this case. Yes. One is enough. And I'm grateful for your time and for putting this on, and I appreciate everybody that pays attention and hung in there and maybe even got a few laughs out of the whole thing, and took some notes. And if there's anything I can do for people, please do check out FrameTech and reach out to me.
Man, you are speaking directly to my soul. Thank you again. I've said it probably 8 times by now, but really, honestly, thank you for everyone listening. Thank you guys for making it this far. If you did, leave a comment that you made it this far because I want to congratulate you for making it an hour through. But honestly, if you've listened to this, I implore you, go back and listen to it again because there's so much for me. I'm going to go back and re-listen to this because there's so many things that you've said on this one, Damion, that I know I needed in this season of my life. So again, thank you for everyone listening. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next episode.